The West Virginia quarterback room is full of young talent. So, with that many pieces in place, could one potentially move to another position? I think it's possible. We'll talk about it here today on Between Eers. Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Between the Eers. Make sure you smash that like button here on our video and click subscribe if you aren't already. Here to our channel at West Virginia on SI, we've got episodes every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And of course, we'll have the Walk Thru GameDay Show back again this year, which will preview that week's matchup every Thursday morning, first thing. And that'll be with Eugene Napoleon, former Mountaineer running back, played for that 1988 undefeated team that took on Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. So we'll have a lot of fun with that here in the coming weeks. Actually, I shouldn't say coming weeks. It's more towards the end of August. We're going to do a kickoff show with Gene on the Walk Thru GameDay Show. So that's basically going to be our unofficial begin to that show. We won't really preview a game. It'll be during week 0. We'll just kind of talk about all of the storylines heading into week 1, kind of the expectations that Gene has, just the thoughts that he has running through his mind. And we won't really dive too much into the opener against Coastal Carolina, which, I mean, to be honest, it's Coastal, with all due respect. So we'll save that for the actual week 1 preview, but it'll be more of a season preview of sorts. So keep that in your calendars. But today, I want to talk about a certain player in the quarterback room that no one's really talked about, mainly because it's always been about Mike Hawkins and Scotty Fox and even Jaron Hewley a little bit, another true freshman that showed some promise early on so far. It had a fairly strong spring, showed some nice, encouraging things. But there's 2 other freshmen in that room. You have Walker Brown and John Johnson III. John Johnson is a very, very, very intriguing case. He was committed to Washington State. And if you remember, in the 11th hour, West Virginia swooped in, got him to flip around signing day, and got his teammate Greg Wilfred, who is a slot receiver, that also helped them kind of get to a point where they could get Teron Francis out of the transfer portal, who also played with those 2 guys at Edna Carr down in Louisiana. John Johnson is somebody who I believe could have a very, very bright future as a wide receiver. And I know people are going to say, why are you giving up on the kid as a quarterback? I'm not necessarily doing that, because I do think that there is an intriguing skill set for him at quarterback. I do think West Virginia is going to continue to rep him there and see what happens first. But I don't have to make that call right now. I can put this stuff out there because I'm not in those conversations. I'm not watching the practices every day or conducting the practices every day. But I really see Johnson's potential being maximized the most as a receiver. And it's not that I don't believe he can't be successful at quarterback. So let's not get that confused. Let's go ahead and get that cleared up right now. I think he could be a successful quarterback, but when you look at the path to playing time, it's much more direct at receiver than it is a quarterback. So let's just start there, right? Mike Hawkins is your starting quarterback. Assuming all goes well, he's going to be your starting quarterback for 26, 2027, and maybe 2028, depending on the trajectory of his development. So you're talking at least 2 to 3 years where Johnson, heck, even Scotty Fox or Jaron Hewley, Walker Brown are all there developing, sitting to play a spot on the field that is occupied, that only has one position on the field at one time. So you're going to see movement. I don't think that's a bold statement. I'm not projecting that somebody in particular in that room is going to transfer out after this season. I think it's just pretty obvious math that, especially if Hawkins goes out there and has the type of year we all expect, someone's going to move, maybe even two guys. That's just the way this thing works, especially with that position. And again, being that you can only play one at a time. I don't see a scenario where Rich Rod is going to go to a two QB system. I don't see a scenario where he's going to rotate quarterbacks, especially if he has the answer. If you have the answer to the test, why try to get cute with it and say, "Hey, I still have the answer, but I'm going to do it in a roundabout way." No. Like you know what this reminds me of, honestly, is like when I was in high school, and this wasn't all that long ago. It was what, 12 years ago. When I was in high school, there was a certain way you did math, right? Like 6 times 4 is 24. But I swear it's like 4 years after I got out of high school and I was in college and got out of college, it felt like math completely changed and there was this completely new way to do 6 times 4. I have seen some of the craziest things on these worksheets that my nephews have had. And I know I'm getting way off the path here, but still, it makes sense to a certain degree. When these worksheets, you have to put 6 on this side, you draw a line, you got 4 over here, and you do this and you do that, and somehow 14 steps later you get to 24. I look, I don't get it, but again, why get cute when you can just do the simple 6 times 4, boom, 24, right? Same thing with the quarterback situation. If you have your guy, if you know that Mike Hawkins is your starting quarterback and he is the answer, or any other situation, doesn't even have to be West Virginia. Why get cute? Why go to a two quarterback system? Why have even a package for a guy outside of maybe short yardage where it's a QB sneak and you want to keep your guy healthy? Outside of that, I've never understood having a package for somebody. If you're doing it just to keep somebody happy, I mean, is a package really going to keep a guy happy at quarterback? Probably not. So when you have your guy at quarterback, you have your guy. So what I'm basically trying to get at here is there's probably not a open door, a straight line path for Johnson at quarterback. No matter how good he does in this first year in the system as a scout teamer or, as just a depth option, Mike Hawkins is the guy. Scotty Hawkins. Scotty Fox is your number 2. Max Brown is your number 3. It's pretty clear cut 1, 2, 3. So you look at receiver, there's 3 spots on the field. You have your X, your Z, your slot. You even have another if you want to throw in a 4th. There's multiple ways to get involved at receiver. And this dude can flat out freaking run. I'm telling you, if you guys go watch his film at Ed Nakar, yeah, he threw the ball a decent bit, but he ran it a bunch as well. Over 700 yards. I think he was pushing 800 in his senior year. Ran for like 15, 16 touchdowns. There's a reason why West Virginia, when they signed him, labeled him as an athlete before eventually switching his position on the team roster to quarterback. They believe that there's something there, whether that's at quarterback, running back, receiver. They just know this dude can play football. He is an athlete. Whether that's at quarterback or somewhere is TBD. He can throw the football. I'm not questioning that whatsoever. I'm just questioning the path, the plan, the quickest way to get him on the field. Because when you have a player like him, he can't be sitting on the sidelines. Now, maybe as a freshman, yeah, of course, he's going to go through some development. And even if you were to make the switch to wide receiver, it's still going to take some time to get coaching and get reps under his belt and all that. But you don't want an athlete like that sitting on the sideline for several years when you can find a way to get him involved in other areas, much like what Rich Rod did with Cam Vaughn. I'm sure most of you know, but some of you may not. Cam Vaughn was recruited to Jacksonville State as a quarterback to be a quarterback in Rich Rod's system. Didn't take very long, and Richard said, "Yeah, I think you're probably best as a receiver." And it wasn't a slight on Cam's ability as a quarterback. It was just that size, that length, that ability to really stretch the field made a lot of sense to make the switch to receiver. And obviously, it paid off. Now, John Johnson's a little bit different stature. He's not nearly as big. He's more smaller and compact, but he is so shifty. Got incredible make you miss ability in space. And again, this is just me thinking outside of the box to some degree. Again, it's not really that crazy because it's been tossed around. He would be such a dynamic playmaker at receiver. He really, really would. And if you can't get him on the field as a starter at quarterback within 2 to 3 years, is it worth not making the switch? I think you have to kind of project that out and say, one, is he going to stay for that long, not playing? Two, is his ceiling at quarterback worth waiting for? And also, what's his floor as a receiver? Because if his floor as a receiver is pretty solid early in his career, you might as well go ahead and make the switch at some point this year. Again, I'm not advocating for it to happen right now, today, July 19th. I think they will absolutely rep him at quarterback in fall camp and just kind of naturally let this thing take its course. But I'm encouraging you all, if you have not watched this kid's film yet, go pull it up on Huddle. You will understand what I'm seeing in saying that this guy could be a dynamic wide receiver. Now, if this thing all ends up where, Hawkins is the guy and he does well for a couple of years and he heads to the NFL, and John Johnson is developing and maturing and getting better and understanding the system and picking things up, understanding defenses and all that grand idea stuff, then that's awesome. And maybe he becomes the guy. Maybe he's the heir apparent. I don't know. But again, it's just so damn hard for me, for whatever reason, to think that this guy could not be a legitimate dude at receiver. I don't know. Again, the coaches will make that decision. I have complete confidence and trust that they'll make the right call in that. But watching this film, man, it is something. It makes you want to get him on the field in some capacity. So, all right, we are going to take a quick break, and on the other side, we do have a mailbag question, so we'll get to that and round out today's episode of BT.
Let's go, Mountaineer Nation. The final whistle might blow, but the real breakdown is just getting started. Join us right after every WVU game for the Mountaineer Postgame Show. Instant analysis, real talk, and zero fluff. What went right, what went wrong, and what's next. We've got it all for you. Hit subscribe, turn on the notifications, and be part of the conversation. Win, lose, or draw, we're breaking it all down for you, Mountaineer style.
Welcome back to BTE, and it's time for our mailbag question of the day, and it is from Luke Runke. And Luke asks, why would a record of 8-4 be too crazy to say as a dream scenario? In Rich Rod's first stint, he went from 3-8 in year 1 to 9-4 in year 2. Is this not possible to be replicated? Is it because the Big 12 today is much bigger than what the Big East was? Personally, I think a realistic scenario for 2026 is 6-6, while the dream scenario is 8-4. A nightmare scenario would be 4-8. Luke, I don't really disagree with a lot of what you just said there. And if you're wondering why he's pulling this dream nightmare scenario stuff and you didn't watch a recent episode, go back and watch the last one that we did on, what was that, Wednesday, excuse me. I broke down what I believe would be a dream, nightmare, and realistic scenario for the Mountaineers this fall. Not getting into my season predictions just yet. I'm kind of tinkering with that. Usually I would put one out in like late June, early mid-July, and then I'd put out another one right before the season starts. I'm not doing that this year. I'm just going to do one and call it at that. So Luke, I think the biggest thing is it's not impossible to go 8-4, but there's a lot of different things in place now, right? With NIL and the transfer portal, and obviously the difference in conferences and the level of opponents that you're going to be facing here in year two, as opposed to what he had again in the Big East. So you are spot on there. The Big 12 is much more difficult, and even then, the Big East was fairly good. It wasn't the diluted version that we really ended up getting to there towards the end, but the Big 12 now is still just much more difficult. And when you have teams like Texas Tech and Utah and TCU's not going to be an easy one, Oklahoma State, Virginia. I mean, there's just so many uh, challenging opponents on this year's slate. And then you add in the fact that you have 80 new players. Now, I've said multiple times this offseason that I don't necessarily believe that the roster flip is as big of a problem as it was a year ago or as some other national outlets are trying to make it. But it's still a chemistry issue. It's still a lack of experience in this system issue. So you're going to go through some bumps along the way. You're not going to be hitting on all cylinders coming out of the gate. And I think that's why I think 8-4 is more in that dream bucket. Again, I put buckets for this. It wasn't just 8-4 is the dream scenario. If you didn't watch, it was 8-4 on up. So I go back to what I said on Wednesday. If you polled 100 Mountaineer fans right now and said this team's only going to lose 4 games, I think a very significant chunk of them would sign up for that than taking the field of whatever else could happen, right? So you look at that early part of the schedule. If you don't get that Virginia game, which it sounds, wild to think that, if you don't go 3-0, then you're really putting yourself behind the eight ball. I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but you're really making it tough to go 8-4 if you lose that game. You only have 3 games to play with. That's it. And you got Texas Tech, which I think we can all assume is probably going to be a loss. Utah on the road at night on Black Friday, not an easy place to play. And by then, I would assume Morgan Scalley's going to have a lot of answers with 11 games under his belt as the head coach. Again, that trip to TCU is not going to be easy. Arizona coming in to Morgantown's not going to be easy. You have Houston coming into Morgantown, not going to be easy. So it's going to be pivotal to win that game in Charlotte against Virginia, to go 8-4 or better. So that's why I feel like it's more of a dream scenario. Again, it comes with some realism, right? As I said on Wednesday's show, not every team around the country is looking at 8-4 as thinking that's a dream scenario. Now, Texas Tech, their dream scenario, win the damn national championship. They should. They have the talent to. But if we're being realistic, that's not a dream scenario for West Virginia. I have to enter some realism in this, or else we're just going to say winning a national championship is the dream scenario for West Virginia, and that's the case every year, obviously. But if we want to be somewhat realistic with the expectation of even in a dream scenario, winning 8, 9, 10 games, yeah, that would be a dream scenario that I think everybody would sign up for in year two. When you look at the defense, man, there are some question marks up and down it all throughout depth, all 3 levels. I don't know that they're going to be one of the worst units in the Big 12, but man, there are some serious question marks I have. Again, I will detail that further here as we get closer to the season and into fall camp. But if that offense kind of has some issues stumbling out of the gate, it could be a long year. I don't think they will, but you're going to need the offense to step up and score to kind of compensate for what may happen on that other side of the football. So, hope I answered your question for you. 8-4, it's not impossible. I don't think at all. It's just more of you win 8 games, that's a pretty damn good season. and somewhat of a dream season comparing where you just came from a year ago winning 4 games and getting blown out in a ton of them. So, all right, that'll do it for today's episode. If you have a question, drop it in our comment section using the hashtag AskBTE, and we will be back on Tuesday with another episode. We're getting close to the start of fall camp. End of this month, it's coming. So, a whole lot of stuff coming your way here on our channel at West Virginia on SI. Also, visit our website and check us out on Twitter at SI_WVU. Take care, everybody. We'll talk again on Tuesday.